Powered by Riverside.
Hey guys, welcome back to You Know What I Like, Theater. And as promised from our last episode, we're recording this a little bit later, so if you've noticed, the light has changed on the vlogcast. It is
Yeah.
because we've had a very busy couple of days loving theater, participating in theater. So we are getting our recording time where we can. Hey, hopefully the lighting is doing us some justice here, but we are talking about a brand new musical from a local theater company in Richmond. That's all they produce is new work. I think they say specifically new work to the Richmond area, which is really cool. And this was a recommendation from my best friend from college, Kelly Brown. She's amazing. I love her. She's also a very talented theater artisan singer herself. I feel like the best way I can describe her to our very nerdy audience is if you have ever listened to Critical Role and you know the Mighty Nine campaign, I really view her as Jester.
Yes,
She's
I can see
100%
that.
Jester to me, and I love Jester. I have like all my cute little Jester sweaters. It is embarrassing how much I love this character because they remind me of my best friend. So I would just say, hopefully that gives you some insight of how wonderful this person is and how much we value their recommendations.
Yes.
And they are local to Richmond, so they would know. I didn't know anything about this, and we'll kind of get into the description a little bit here. But it was really kind of amazing to find a place that was like, we just want to highlight work that's never been done before.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's always nice to find a place that is helping to develop and expose new theater, and especially, I'll just go ahead and say, especially premiere a new musical, which is one of the harder forms of theater to actually get off the ground.
I think we both talked about like how many times we see an off-Broadway or Broadway musical, and then the creative team, whether it's Steve Martin or Amber Ruffin or Lin-Manuel Miranda, and they say, oh yeah, it took 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years.
Yeah.
So I think that they said that this is maybe in the second year of development, that it came through a Catalyst Theater program that I think started as a play, and then they maybe started developing it into a musical. I'm trying to remember the curtain speech, but that was my understanding. Is this is an artist who was developed as local talent by a playwriting program, and as they started developing it through that program, discovered it was a musical, and this was maybe their first or second iteration of it. Does that sound right?
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was, I mean, we'll get into a lot of the things first. I'm going to give my little spiel first, and then we'll talk about what we thought about it, because already I was about to say, and it was in an amazing space, but let's save that for the pros. I don't want to be naughty.
Yes, no
we haven't
naughtiness.
been naughty for a while. Like, we were really bad in the beginning, and now we've been pretty good.
Yeah.
We're getting closer to Christmas. We all want to get our presents.
I want a new musical in my stocking, not coal.
Yes. I want many new musicals in my stocking. Maybe some that we write, but it is one of those things where it's just like, after we finish podcasting and after we finish acting, and we want to do everything. That's the sad part. It's like you always want to do more than the time you have in the day, which is why we're recording at night. Although I have a beautiful pink sky out my window, which I love.
Ooh.
So we went to Firehouse Theatre, and we'll tell you why it's called Firehouse Theatre in a minute. This is on July 26th for the 2 p.m. matinee. It's located on West Broad Street in Richmond, Virginia, which is very funny. When we checked in and they said, "Did you park along Broad Street?" I'm like, this is meaningless to me. I don't know which street is Broad. I don't live here. I didn't mean to be so flippant about it, but I'm just like, maybe. I was like, there's a lot of streets in Richmond we could have. We don't know.
I only understood because I had been following your directions the whole time. The last direction I remembered was turn left on Broad.
Yeah, I'm a great navigator, but did I remember what I said? No. The cost was $104 for 2 adults.
Okay.
Parking was free across the street at Lowe's as long as you park along the gate on the main road and printed out a parking pass at home. But they did have some parking passes sitting on their box office dais for use on the day. The reason why I sound a little frenetic is I heard parking for free at Lowe's, print out a parking pass. That was already a lot of steps. But we will do it for free parking. And it was convenient to the theater. And then we went in and they said, "Did you park along the gate?" I'm like,
yeah.
Richmond I parked next parking, to a tree.
Yeah, Richmond parking is always always an experience. You know, we were talking about this recently of did we actually go see a show in Richmond if I didn't have to drop Bree off at the front door of the theater so she could get our seats and then I go and find parking.
I know. I feel like there's been so many times we've driven into Richmond and it says, we'll take 45 minutes, we'll take an hour. You know, it's like not very hard, not very far. And then for whatever reason, we're all of a sudden 30 minutes delayed. And I'm like having a panic attack. And I go in and I'm like, please let us in. We paid so much money for these tickets. We really love theater. And then there's some bereft usher or box office manager or owner of the theater that is like, don't worry, ma'am. We'll make sure you both see the show. I guess I've just really mastered damsel in distress.
Yes.
Anyway, the show was called Safety by the new playwright Irene Ziegler, and it is a new musical. And here's my little blurb. I always try to do a little bit of research, so I always tell folks, please let me know if my research is crap. I can take it. I normally do 20 to 45 minutes of researching the theater's webpage, and then I copy and paste some bits, and sometimes I change it around and edit because I'm not going to use AI. I just basically try to get a gist and try to say what I know to be true about this, but if I'm wrong, let's put it in the comments. Please correct me. I don't want to be wrong. I don't want people to misunderstand what a wonderful theater these things are. So I just like to tell you, like, if they are short or if they are brief or if there's not a lot of stuff, probably because I couldn't find it in under an hour. So I'm doing my best. And I can always improve. So maybe next season of the podcast, when we try this experiment again of doing live theater for a month, maybe I'll get better at it. So it's a skill you got to hone. You got to get away from the AI and into the brain. So.
Yes.
So I said this performance was referred to us by a local. So it's new to us as a theater, new to us as the play. But apparently very well known to townies. When I mentioned a few people saying, "Oh, we're going to Firehouse Theatre," I think you mentioned it to your coworker. I mentioned it to other actors. Everybody was very, very familiar with this. It was just new to us.
Yeah.
Firehouse was, of course, founded in a firehouse. I was like, it's very Ghostbusters, very exciting. And has been a company around Richmond for 30 years. According to their website, their company goal is to produce Richmond premieres written by contemporary American playwrights. And I think it's really cool to see a company that has done so well in just focusing on local talent, new works, and bringing timely messages through theater. Because there's not a lot of theaters out there with this model that could have stuck around for 30 years with the support of their community. And I think we said if we were looking to start a community theater now and we went to the bank and we said, this is our goal, they'd be like, what are you doing? I think it would be very hard to get a loan on that. But I mean, it was very, very beloved. I think we went on the last performance maybe, and it was
I believe they said it was the last.
Yeah, I mean, it was just really phenomenal. And like I said, close-knit group of community members where there are people who seem to come here all the time. Very, very beloved, very, very crowded, like very well supported. Like, I mean, it was literally, I think, a good example of people love this thing so much they do put their money where their mouth was. Like, I mean, $104 is not the most expensive tickets that we have bought, but there was a bunch of people who were willing to pay that price and to support it and loved the actors on stage, loved the people running the theater, loved the theater. It was at a great location next to a bunch of VCU buildings and apartment buildings. And like one of the things that I say every single time we've been to Richmond now, the very first time we saw a ferry come through on our way to come away. And then we were coming up and there was pirates. And the girl called out, "I love your dress." And I was like, "I love your dress." So there is something very magical about Richmond that you just go to theater and you see some fantastic people just making the city great.
Yeah, you're just like, if I didn't have a show to get to, I would be like, where are you going? That seems fun.
Yeah, they had a pirate ship. I mean, like, it was just the craziest thing. And I was like, this is magical. Richmond is magical. So yeah, I said beautiful location, both inside and out. Like, it was amazing, amazing theater. They really we'll get into this, but the set was so good. So I'm going to just smush all my pros together. But you could see the back area, like the garage door when they swung their mechanical turntable around.
Yeah.
The front of the house is amazing. The back of the house is amazing. We didn't really stick around for concessions or bathroom because we were in a bit of a rush this day. We had to get to a rehearsal right after this, which I was very stressed about. We were very stressed about parking, but I cannot neglect that the outside of the space, the inside of the space, everything was just, chef's kiss. Loved it.
Yes, absolutely. It had the feeling of a really well done, professionally set up theater space, but also sort of that feeling of a little bit like going into the theater is walking into a little hole in the wall where you're going to see like an off-Broadway show or something like that. Yeah. So a very nice, intimate sort of experience, little bit of a speakeasy experience.
Yeah, it was cool. Again, set was so cool. They had a mechanic turntable. They had techies, which I love. I love dedicated set professionals. A major theme was windows. And they had these like really abstract lit up windows on the side that made the proscenium arch, which was super duper cool. Like, I mean, just a lot of production value went into the set that was just phenomenal.
Yeah. It was, new play development can be a mixed bag in terms of production value. This was very clearly a company that was like, we are going to give new plays their best chance on stage. We're going to do everything we can to make this a big thing, a big moment for this play.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's a lot of times that I think with new playwrights or new plays, a lot of community theaters will sit there and regulate them to, well, it's a staged reading. We can't necessarily devote theater space to it. So we're all going to go into a rehearsal room or a library or something. Sometimes you'll do a new play festival where it's shown amongst a lot of other stuff. So I feel like being able to see local talent have a place on stage with dedicated, just like any other licensed production, was really cool. And like that does not happen very frequently in established community theaters, just due to the fact that it's like you're looking at what is going to make the money to keep you going till next year. And while you have this as like maybe an ultimate goal, you're not necessarily treating it like your licensed shows or your big money makers, or, if you do a Christmas show every year, you do a big musical every year, like it is not going to be something that's local. And I understand. I just told you this was the whole deal of Firehouse Theatre. But like, that's why I think people come, and that's why I think people go, because like, you don't see that anywhere else. And I don't know where else except local live theater you're going to get that. Like, Netflix isn't going to do that for you. You're not going to see that on like a pro shot of somebody's random thing show up in a movie theater. Like, this is kind of the only place you're going to see this, unless other theaters decide to devote one of their slots to, this is a local playwright, and we're always going to devote time, money, energy, resources, technical ability to it.
Yeah. All right. What so we've got great theater, great sets, great production value.
I said singers were very strong and they had a live orchestra, which I like.
Yeah. Yeah, great, you know, and I'm sure we'll talk about it in future episodes, but always appreciate a live orchestra. Always appreciate when a musical has a live band, even if it's a small band. Always appreciate seeing a live orchestra as part of that.
Yeah, I think it was, I mean, it was definitely a guy on a keyboard with some other stuff.
Yeah.
And that made sense. It was a small cast, and, you know, it was mostly one or two people singing at a time. But, like, I think that there's just so many things that are so important to having the support of artists. And so, like, I mean, that was the other thing is, like, I can't overstate the love for the dedication to new work, living playwrights, musicians, technicians, like, just to have all of these professionals and voices in the room are just, like, so critical. Like, there's just not, this just, I can't emphasize how often this doesn't happen. Like, I think people are gonna not believe me, and they're just say, well, Gabrielle, you know, you didn't actually go here or do this or blah 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 blah. But it's like, I don't think it's people know this or recognize this. And as somebody who likes to write plays, likes to write musicals, like, I know how hard it is. And I know, you know, especially, I'm not a new playwright anymore. I'm not a mid-career because I never got a career started. I just kind of write things and kind of hope for the best. And so it is really hard to find somebody who wants to feed the musicians, to feed the living playwrights. Like, we're all perfectly happy doing dead playwrights, and they don't have to get a share of the profits, or, you know, we don't have to worry about things that are in public domain. But really saying, like, we're going to do the hard thing is commendable. And I said, I would encourage friends to go and see and work with this team. They all seem kind and wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, like, I will just stress what you were saying, because it's like people who are not used to thinking about theater and where theater comes from and how theater is made may not be familiar with this. But as someone who pretty much in the same boat as you, I can no longer call myself a new playwright, but I also can't really call myself an established playwright. But I've seen, like, the whole element of new play development is you're either working with theaters and theater companies that don't have a lot of resources, so they're doing the absolute best they can with what they've got. Or if you do get a good theater company with a lot of resources, they're not always willing to take a chance on you. So it's like, yeah, we'll produce your play, but it's going to be done on our second or third stage. And set design is going to be, we're going to throw people out there with 3 bar stools and they'll move them around to turn them into different rooms. It's because new plays are risky. Unknown playwrights are risky. And the only thing new playwrights can do to alleviate that risk is write yet another adaptation of A Christmas Carol.
Yeah. So, yeah, I feel like lots of, in general, pros. And I think my very last pro, you know, it's not very big and dramatic. I was like, seats are comfy. I like the seats. We had great seats.
Yeah, that's worthwhile. I will throw in one really quick kind of minor pro as well, which is that we've talked before about the curtain speeches and the whole, how do they handle please turn off your phone or please silence your phone. And I thought this was one of the best that we've heard. The absolute best we've heard is the live arts. You know, if you do see someone on their phone, please don't call them out for it. They might be using an audio boosting, sound boosting app. But this one I thought was very close to that, because they did encourage us to turn our phones off, but they made a very good realistic argument for it, which was basically, please turn off your phones. Silence your phones. We would love it if you could turn them off, because they can interfere with our communications between backstage and the stage manager. And it's like, yeah, that's a really good point to make. And it doesn't feel condescending to say that to an audience.
Yeah, and I mean, literally, like, I almost never turn my phone off because we both work for the hospital. If something happens to one of my patients, like, I'm not going to be the one to save them, but I kind of need to know. And I was like, no, you know what? Like, this is like being on an airplane, right? This was a valid excuse. Like, and especially when somebody asks nice to say, like, look, our booth is way back there. We have people way back because it's a very narrow building. Just please, like, we need to be able to have that tool. So if you don't mind, it'd be really nice. And that's a lot better than like, hey guys, we should all be in the shared space together. Like, why do we need our phones? Gosh, couldn't it just be the 80s? Like, you know, it wasn't cutesy. And I said, I think it was because it was so practical and pragmatic that's like, hey, our stage manager won't be able to communicate with people backstage because everybody's trying to be on the same bandwidth. Well, I know that's a thing. Even if they lied, even if that's not true, they said it in such a way that my like scientific heart said, yeah, I will turn off my phone. And I did. Like, I've turned off my phone. I turned it back on at intermission. I turned it off again. So I was very compliant. They figured out the magic sauce.
Yes, absolutely. And it is, like I said, it's not condescending to ask the audience, hey, it really helps us out if you can do this. And it's very, it turns the audience into an active participant. It turns it into, but there was also that sort of inherent recognition of some of you can't turn your phones off. That's okay. If you can, please do. Yeah. That was the wonderful addition, I thought, in terms of it. So
yeah, I agree. We ready to get into some cons?
All right, let's get into some cons.
And like, please be aware, we are not here to be like, boo, we hate new work. Boo, we hate new artists. Like, when we talk about cons, it's stuff that's like, we understand from having written plays and musicals that we are seeing something very early on. We're seeing the jelly goo before it becomes the butterfly. So I think, like, coming from our backgrounds of if we were brought in as script doctors, if we were brought in as part of the creative team to take this to the next level, that's kind of what we're talking about. I would say both of us, for coming in and seeing a new work, we were enthused and excited and loved it, and we could just end it there. You know what I like? Theater, good night. We could do that. So I feel like when we're talking about this, we are talking about the limitations of this is something at a very beginning part of its incarnation. And everybody who was involved in this was phenomenal, amazing, and we enjoyed their performances. We enjoyed their talent of bringing this story to life. We enjoyed, like I said, all the technical elements. So I feel like, again, we're going to bring up some cons, but they are very minor. This would not prohibit me from seeing something at Firehouse again. And in fact, we talked about how excited we are to see more things at Firehouse and how disappointed we were at missing some things that people in the audience were talking about how much they loved last year. Yeah. So this is definitely something in our regular rotation that we're going to be looking for, contributing more, participating in more. Like, this is a real hidden gem for us.
Yes, absolutely. And it is, when we critique because we love. That's why so often our con section winds up being full of nitpicks, is because it's like, hey, we absolutely loved this experience. You know what would just be a little bit extra that would make it better the next time?
Yeah. And like, I think we also had a really good conversation in the car where when we talk about a lot of plays, and I've had this conversation with friends in the area because they said, well, why didn't you come see that play? And I always say, like, I don't think it's for me. The marketing materials didn't speak to me, or, I read the description and I really didn't have the time or the money to go. So there's like a lot of times where I'll just say, like, it wasn't a thing for me, but there's a lot of value here. And like one of my really close friends from working in Emma was like always really disappointed. Like, what could we have done to got you in the door? And I'm like, well, but like also you don't have to pitch everything to me. Like things
Yeah.
I like, not everybody else are gonna like. So honestly, like as much as I love live theater in general and local community theater in general, I'm gonna anticipate there's probably gonna be 3 or 4 productions every year that I'm just not gonna like. That doesn't mean that other people aren't gonna like them, that they'll probably outsell and outperform versus things I like. So I just always tell people it's like I am one fraction of your audience, and if you have 1 to 2 shows I like a year, that's amazing. You shouldn't pitch everything to me. You shouldn't want me to be at every single show. You should be wanting to get everybody in the community in. And if that means that there are shows that aren't for me, that's fine. I was like, I'm not a dude, bro, that feels like every single thing belongs to me and I need to complain about it and say,
Yeah.
why wasn't this movie for me? I'm okay with that. I can recognize I don't like this material. I don't like this genre. I already talked about how I don't like horror movies. I'm not going to sit there and watch Hellraiser with you no matter how much you want me to. Luckily, Glenn understands I won't and will not make me. But it is
Yes.
still one of these things that I like to just say, like, if I say I don't like something, that doesn't mean I didn't like the writer. It didn't mean I didn't like the director. It didn't mean I didn't like the actors. It just means for me, I don't think I was the intended audience, and I don't know if I ever will be, but I think that everything was phenomenal and an excellent piece of theater, and that was the show for me. That's why I had such a big lead up to it, because I wanted to say I didn't like the show. But I have some theories about why I didn't like the show, but it wasn't I didn't like the play. It wasn't I didn't
Right.
like the actors. It's just I think the source material and the topics and stuff like that, like it's not on a cross section of my interests, but I found a lot of value of going to the show and watching it, and I really enjoyed my time there and being an audience and experiencing and participating in it. But it was like, again, like we've had a few shows like this now where it's like, but I don't want to go back. Like, I'm glad I did it. And if they do it again and they say, oh, and we changed this, and this, or it's a different incarnation, or we did this, or whatever, I maybe I'd go see it again. But also, I was just like, the overarching theme was they did a commentary about community violence and gun control and some very critically important topics here in America. And I think that those are all worthwhile to explore through theater and to do in a musical. But I was like, I'm a little nervous. And so it's like the whole time I'm like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. So again, this is why I don't watch Hellraiser. So I just like to say, like, I think that is it is a me problem, not a show problem. And I
And
wanted to get that very clear out there.
yeah, and to the credit of the theater company, for people who are concerned about topics like that, they were very forthcoming in their promotion of the show and everything, and in their promotional materials, in telling people, hey, if you're going to come see this show, just so you know, I know people have very complex emotions around the mere concept of trigger warnings, but they were very clear about what the trigger warnings for this show were. That they were like, if you don't want to see a show that includes these things, this show includes them.
Yes.
And I think that's important. And like you just said, not everything is going to be for you. I got over wanting everything to be for me a long time ago. I'm the film optimist, all right? And you would think the film optimist, I would go to every single movie and be at every single movie. And I've had those subscriptions at theaters where you can go like once a day and see a movie for free. The sheer number of times I have looked at the listing of movies and been like, there's not a thing I'm interested in seeing. And I just stay home and watch something I am interested in seeing. It's like you gotta be able to pick and choose what fits for you. And they did a good job about telling people, hey, this is what the show's going to be about.
Yeah, they did say, like, this is a tragic comedy about trauma. So, I mean, like, we
Yes.
knew what it was. It's kind of the same thing. Like, every year we have to watch the Keep Yourself Safe on Campus video. And I hate it. and it traumatizes me every time because I'm a big old weenie. And I complained so much they finally did put a warning. Hey, by the way, if you're a big old weenie like Bree, just be aware you don't really have to watch it. But every year I'm like, I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna do it this time. I'm an adult. So I recognize that's who I am.
And I want to stress the language on the training video literally says, if you are a big old weenie just like Bree, do not watch this. So I feel like that was a little bit more passive aggressive than it needed to be. But
I know, UVA. Anyway, it was just one of these things that I like to say, like, I have come to terms with I was an overly sensitive child. I am an overly sensitive adult. That doesn't mean I need trigger warnings. It doesn't mean that I will not participate in things. We had a huge conversation with another play that we watched where it's fine if you make me sad. It's fine if you make me angry. It's fine if, there's stuff that happens that I don't enjoy. I just have to process that on my own. But I also recognize, like, for me, I'm not speaking for anybody else in internet land. So I think that it is good and right that everybody has accommodations. Mm-hmm. But for me, I like to suffer a little. I like to be like, maybe now I'm ready for it. And I don't want to be cut off from the full experience of stuff. So regardless of what happened by the end of the play, and I decided, oh, this isn't a play for me, I still went into it. I want to experience this because I want to know what these people are feeling. I want to know what this story is. And I found a lot of value of experiencing the story. But again, like I said, if somebody said, hey, we changed nothing, do you want to watch it again? I'd be like, no, thank you. I got it the first time. But here, have my $50 and go support an actor.
And that internet is why she will never, ever watch Hellraiser with me. But I might be able to convince her to watch Midsommar.
Maybe. Maybe. I'm
working on it.
Like, yeah, it's like, tell me when to close my eyes. Like, we had a big discussion about The Shape of Water where it's like, I love The Shape of Water. I just needed to know when that scene happened because I'm very sensitive.
Yes.
And I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, although it shouldn't be spoilery, but, we're not talking about that. We're talking about safety. So getting into the whole con, saying it's not for me. So aside from the subject matter, right? That was hard for me to digest and to participate in, but I did it and I thought that was valuable. I don't like a lot of modern musicals. I'm really sorry. I was raised by older parents. I like the golden age of musicals. When I was very young taking voice lessons, I was always told, you're going to be the next Ethel Merman. You're a belter. So I admit that a lot of the musical styles I like are when Oh, What a Beautiful Morning could show up on the radio, when Promises, Promises, what do you take when you fall in love? That shows up on the radio. I like shows that have these songs where they're a little bit broader. Everybody knows what it's like to fall in love. Everybody knows what it's like to have a child. I mean, like, there's some more universal human experiences that are not limited to Broadway shows and songs. And those are the types of things that I like. So I always fully admit I'm an old fogey when it comes to that. And a lot of modern musicals are like, and I am a guy and I'm here in a town and I'm walking on the street and I say, hey, Joe, and I do not enjoy that. And I think it's just a very modern thing coming off of like a lot of Sondheim. There's like few people that are very inspired by certain predecessors. Sondheim, Jonathan Larson, stuff like that. And a lot of modern musicals that tend to go a bit in like patter or recitative and stuff like that. And to me, I feel like they have narrowed themselves into such a really specific genre that I don't get to have those like random songs that could appear on the radio in the 60s and 70s. And I kind of miss that. So I always say, like, I think the singers were phenomenal. And there were so many fun parts about the songs that I like. And there was like a music box song that I liked. But I was like, there wasn't anything I walked out of the theater humming or singing or saying like, oh man, that was really catchy. There was a lot of stuff where it's like, yeah, that was an excellent work in progress. I can't wait to see what comes next because there was a lot of good gem of ideas. There was a lot of good, like, thematic elements that happened. And, just unfortunately, it was just not my personal preference, but it didn't mean it wasn't good. It just was like, I already know I don't like modern
Yeah.
musicals, and could not be more contemporary.
Yeah, and I'm gonna throw out there real quick, just in the interest of like I said, we critique because we love. You just mentioned the music didn't leave you really feeling like you were humming the tunes or anything like that. And I'm walking a fine line here now between I don't want to spoil the play for anybody, but I also want to make certain that we get like the good comment in there, which is there was one song you brought up, which was in the second act. There's a song by, I'm just going to say a song by the Mother, where you were like, that was a fun song. That was a
Yeah.
great showstopper
And I do
moment for
remember
the.
that. We're
Yeah.
going out the window. So,
Yes,
I mean,
and it was.
there's my Ethel Merman bit, right?
Yeah.
Obviously that was the one that would stick with me.
So it's not like the entire musical was music you didn't, those music that didn't specifically tickle your funny bone, tickle your fancy, as it were. But that song was like the standout to you, and the rest of it, you had like, I remember there were other songs where you talked about them and you said, oh, that one was going in a good direction, but it did this thing which I didn't really. But that one right there, you were like, that's the song that works out of this show.
Well, and I think it's so funny because we also had that conversation from Neil Patrick Harris hosted the Tonys. And it's like,
Yes.
Sondheim, why are there so many weird chords? We're like, yeah, unfortunately, that's a lot of modern musicals. And that served
Yes.
a purpose, and especially in a case of we're talking about a traumatic event, made sense.
Yeah.
Perfect for the piece. But it was just one of these things where we're like, well, when you kind of go into things saying, yeah, I don't like that, and then you experience that, you're like, I think they did the best job at convincing me that I should like it, but I don't.
Yeah. And I think that from my perspective in terms of the play, the thematic elements of the play were much more in line with I do enjoy seeing plays about themes like this and everything. And my perspective on the play was that it was a good production of a play that is still early in its development. I saw a lot of great ideas on the stage that I really liked. I saw a lot of places where I wanted to see some improvement. Mm-hmm. And I walked out of there I don't think either of us walked out feeling like we had a bad time at the theater.
We were both excited to go back. Like, I would just say, like, for a first play, and for both of us saying, like, we weren't walking out humming things. We weren't walking out excited for the day, but we were so excited by the playwright. We were so excited by the company. We were so excited by the theater. So, I mean, I think the very first thing we said as we got in the car is like, we can't wait to come back.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is big for us in terms of we had to go to Richmond for it.
Right. I know.
Not that we don't like Richmond, as Bree said. Richmond is kind of magical, but it is there. It does feel like there are a lot of people on the road to Richmond who want to kill you before you get there.
Well, and I think like that's kind of been why we've gone to Richmond a lot, because we had such a phenomenal time at Virginia Rep. We had a phenomenal time at Firehouse. We're going back one more time before our experiment is over. But it is one of these things where it's like, yeah, I mean, it is a strong draw for us. And I can't say that would have been me 20 years ago when I first moved to Central Virginia, where I was just like, look, if I can't get it locally, I'm not driving an hour. Are you crazy? And now I'm like, I'm looking for things to go.
Yeah.
Are you ready for the next one?
Yeah, let's talk about the next one.
So I feel like we keep coming back, and like I said, I'm going to do superlatives for our final show for this season.
Yeah.
So thinking of Be More Chill.
Yes.
I hate to be a broken record, but if we think it'd be more chill. I said I would have loved even more heightened mental magical realism like the squib in Be More Chill.
Yes. And this is a play that has a lot of room for that. It dabbles a little bit in it with a couple of scenes. Again, I don't want to get into spoilerific territory by calling out specific ones, but folks who have watched our previous episodes know we like theater when it gets weird. And this play had some moments where it wasn't afraid to get weird. We just wanted to see more of those moments through the entire show.
And in fact, my favorite song of the We're Going Out the Window had the most of that. I'm like, where was this the whole time? I wanted this the whole time. I wanted more. Like, I'm so greedy for theatrical elements. Like, I just have a very core belief of if we are doing theater, we gotta have theater. You know, we gotta go there. And I know that is not everybody's belief. There are certainly modern productions that really crave realism, that really want to say this is true and accurate, and we are going to, like, you're sitting at a bus stop watching things happen. But for me, then let's go sit at a bus stop. No, I don't care if it's Chekhov. I want the magic. I don't care if it's Streetcar. I want the magic. I want the heightened reality, the suspension of disbelief. I want more.
You mentioned Streetcar, and my brain immediately went to the Oh Streetcar episode of The Simpsons, where Marge gets into a community theater production of a musical based on Streetcar Named Desire. And at one point, you see her as Blanche on like a rope on rigging, swinging back and forth above the set with lasers going off around her, going, whoa, whoa, whoa. And out of the audience, Bart goes, cool, she can fly. And Maggie says, or Lisa says, that's supposed to represent her descent into madness. Like, yeah, get weird with it. You could make the Simpsons parody of that weird moment in your play seem like it didn't go far enough.
Well, we're currently in a German adaptation type of play right now. And so, like, obviously, like, if you've seen German theater throughout the years, like, they're still doing Starlight Express. So that just tells you who we are, right?
Yes.
All right, you ready? We're going to keep moving.
Okay.
I was like, I'm going to save your Simpsons stories for Simpsons podcast.
All right. Sorry, didn't mean to derail us with classic Simpsons bits. Let's go.
You know what? We're probably going to get more viewers then.
Oh,
I recognize what our limitations are here.
Hold on.
I've seen them, actually. I know how much people love The Simpsons. All right, so very minor thing. The theater was dirty. I was sitting next to a ledge, and I was like, this is really gross, and I can't put a drink here. I can't put my elbow here. So I just said, I was like, I wish they would have cleaned the audience space better, but that happens. Like I said, we're now into the nitpicky stuff. So I just I didn't want to highlight that because it's I don't know, maybe take a Clorox wipe and just wipe the ledge.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And like you said, it's
hospitable. We've talked about hospitality here in the past.
Yeah, and when you say that it was dirty, let's be clear here. It's not like, oh, the floors were sticky or anything like that. The ledge was dusty. Thick layer of dust.
I was I recognized it was because they built the set.
Yes.
But it's also I've worked in enough community theaters that you sweep down everything, you wipe down everything. It's not new.
But we're not talking about a situation where it's the audience's health was in danger or anything like that. It's just it would be nice if that was cleaned up before the audience came in and sat down next to it.
Yeah. Well, it's my con. You don't have to agree with me. I interpret hospitality very different.
Yes.
All right. I also said it felt like there was a double ending to the show. And as we talked about, I said, however, writing a musical takes dozens of years, and if they would continue, I would expect the play to change more from a final draft. I'm unsure of where they are in the process because I'm not involved in it. So I've just participated in one audience showing of it. So for me, there was like this one moment of, yay, romance, right? And I'm not bothered by that. I think some people would not have liked that, and I get it. I'm I'm a traditionalist, so it's like romance. And then there was a second type of ending where it's like face your fears, you know? And so I was like, it was a bit of a split message. And so I felt like it would have been stronger if they went one direction versus the other, but I understood why both of those moments happened.
Yeah.
Do you have anything?
I'm trying to think of if I had anything that I could really call a con that you haven't already talked about. I am going to mention, and this is not a con for the theater itself. It's just one of those things we're constantly running into, which is the parking.
Yep, that was it. I said parking was slightly frustrating, but not enough that we wouldn't try going again.
Oh, no. And in fact, now that we know how the parking works, we're going to be better prepared for the next time we go there. But it is one of those...
that was like 2 out of my 3 remaining thing. I said, we're really struggling with driving in and out of Richmond. So my in general recommendation that if you're like us and coming out of town, give yourself the extra 30 minutes. I don't know. Yes. I kept trying to like time it like perfectly, and it always ended up being a mistake. Give yourself an extra 30 minutes.
And if you're a Richmond theater company, have you considered doing your shows in Charlottesville? It would just be so much more convenient for the two of us.
I know.
Just saying.
And then I only have one left. I was like, you took up kind of my last 2 out of 3, so I have one left.
Okay.
Do you want to guess what it is?
No, I want to hear what you say.
All right. So I was very fortunate to have some phenomenal playwriting instructors. So Doug Grissom here at UVA and Ed Falco at Virginia Tech. So I literally had their like voices ringing in my ears where I'm like, I would parse the cast down to a tight 4. But that's like a very personal preference based on who I have learned from and what their mentorship has taught me, because they ended up having a fairly large cast. But I think that based on the themes of the play, that you could have done more with less people. Not that I wouldn't have wanted to see anybody on that stage not be on that stage, but I just feel like, you know, if you are starting to look at reproduction and licensing and stuff like that, it is always easier to find 4 people versus 8 people. And maybe if they get to the part where they're going to license this out to other theater shows, maybe they could say flexible cast of 4 to 8, male and female, blah, 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 whatever. But like I said, it was a very minor thing. I just think it could have been equally effective with a smaller cast.
Yeah, and, you know, having my playwriting experience, my playwriting education coming from Barbara Carlyle, wonderful playwright as well. My note is simply returning to what we said earlier about get weird. Get weird. Make it weird. Make the audience go, what the heck is happening?
Yeah. But that was it. Like I said, I was like, it's very, very hard when you personally don't connect with the material. But that doesn't mean that theater isn't worthwhile or isn't worth doing. And like I said, not everything should be catered to free. But it is one of these things that, like I said, we had an overall incredibly positive time. We would 100% go back. We think everything was worth it. I mean, basically, like, we kind of talk about the ticket price. And I think you mentioned at one of our shows, hey, you haven't really talked about gas prices or stuff like that. And so, like, I will admit, you know, driving an hour in, driving an hour out, like, that's kind of something, like, we kind of can't neglect. And the year of our Lord, 2026, that, you know, it's like, yes, the parking was free. Yes, the tickets cost this much. But it's also costing us time and money driving in, driving out, especially when gas is, like, $40, $50, $60 for filling up your whole tank. So I will say, like, for me, I still felt like this was really worth it. But it is, you know, it's getting cost prohibitive the way the economy's going. But as we look at things objectively, I could see where the $104 went.
Yeah.
The set was phenomenal. The actors were phenomenal. I didn't sit there and say, God, this felt overpriced. I felt like, no, that was $104 worth of entertainment and worth the trip there and back.
Yeah.
I will admit that, this is kind of like a luxury that we can afford. And I think that we recently saw a show where they say, like, we are going to ask you for money, but please don't give if you can't. Like, we know what life is. We're actors. So I feel like that's kind of the thing that I will kind of mention with this is I was like, we found it worth it. I would encourage people to go, but at the same time, like, yeah, there are some hurdles that you would have to overcome if you're like us and traveling pretty far out to see these types of things. But if you're local to Richmond, we had a lady right there that's like, I just came here on the bus. Phenomenal. Great.
Yeah.
Like, it would be 100% worth it if we could hop on a bus and see a show this weekend,
Yes,
but
absolutely.
for us driving in and out, that would probably be cost prohibitive to some people around this time of year.
And I have driven enough during this whole experiment that not that I was opposed to it before, not that I wasn't already raving about we needed it before, but 100% has just shored up my belief that, you know what we need? High-speed rail. Affordable high-speed rail.
Yeah, in both directions on 64 East and 64 West, we were just like, oh, this would be so much more fun if we hopped on the light rail, went about an hour and a half, because 45 minutes would take a little bit longer. But it's like to kind of like make kind of an interconnective system. Like, it's just like, and it's not even like it's a hard drive. It's just a boring drive. And when you do it so frequently, and I think there's been a couple of occasions where we're coming back at 10 or 11 o'clock at night, that it's just like, it's just such a drag. It's not hard. It's not impossible. You're just like, man, I would just love it if I could just be hopping on my little train and then picking up my car, whatever. But anyway, like, maybe one day, maybe in the next 20 years.
Before I get too old to enjoy it.
Thinking back to The Simpsons, I'm still arguing for a monorail.
Yes, monorail. I say it so much I sound like the old Simpsons sketch. I'm like, monorail. You know what would be great for this? Monorail.
I just like, okay, a little bit of a distraction, then we'll close out our episode of You Know What I Like Theater instead of You Know What I Like Monorails. But I have been arguing from a connection to the airport to the campus by monorail for ages.
Yes. But you know what? You're probably not interested in a monorail. That seems more like a Shelbyville idea.
Well, welcome back to You Know What I Like, The Simpsons. We're totally changing format for next episode. No, You Know What I Like Theater. I hope you like theater too. Please like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Share with the theater, share with the actors, share with the owners, the production staff, everybody. We would love everybody to know how much we love them. We love theater.
Yes, absolutely. And we do love them.
And now we have gotten into 3 a.m. in a warehouse. And it's time for us to end this episode. But we love you. Thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye, everyone.